I'm Kathleen House. I am from Double Oak, Texas. I graduated from Anthony High School and went to school at K-State. I majored in art education. When I was in Anthony from 1st grade to 12th grade, there was no art. I always loved art. I loved making mud pies and just making stuff outside and running around. But I was in music, and I loved music. But when I enrolled at K-State, I thought, you know what? I want to study art. And so I did, and I was very fortunate to be able to get my bachelor's degree in art education, and then stayed home with a couple of little kiddos for several years, and then thought, you know what? I want to get back in action. So I started teaching in Coppell ISD in Texas, and I actually started their elementary art program for them, and decided to go ahead and get my master's in art education. So I went to TWU and did that. And then after I'd taught for about 10 years, I was also working on as I was working on my master's, I got back into the studio. So then I became a studio artist, and I love it, and I love education as well. I've owned a business, art business, similar to this one here, but we sold it about 12 years ago, so I was able to get back in the studio. And I've been called the perfect paradox because I'm super organized. I make a list and I complete. But when I get in the studio and I start working, I just let it come out. It's free, it's expressive, it's abstract, it's whatever it's going to be. And that's kind of how most of my art has been. I have explored many different mediums, from ink to drawing to acrylic to oil to pastel, and I love them all. I decided about 4 years ago to really get back in the studio. And I completed the first journal I've ever written that has to do with the series called Visual Peace, which is here on display at Graceful Arts Center. And then last year I moved on to write another journal about visual discomfort, things that I couldn't maintain and that drove me crazy because I'm so visual. And so I wrote about them, and then I explored all kinds of mediums. I learned about pan pastel. I'd never heard of that. I used watercolor. I used charcoal, and just explored and created about the things that I see around my property that I can't take care of. But each piece that I created, I was able to let go. It doesn't even bother me anymore. So then my last series for now is going to be in 2020, this year, and it has to do with inspiration and motivation, people throughout my life, starting with my grandmother when I was just teeny, all through my life, that have inspired me and motivated me to do what I can do and be who I'm going to be. And I had a dream that I should ask people to give me their used or damaged guitars and ukuleles and violins. And I have collected 14 of them, and so I'm going to create and paint on the front of those instruments. And then I'm going to write the story on the back, of course, because I like to tell about it. And I just love being able to make art. I love to share art. I love to teach some classes. And I'm really grateful that I was invited to this show.
How can people find out more on the website?
And I do have a website, khouseart.com. I am on Facebook, Kathleen House. You can find me. And then my barn studio is also on Facebook, Red Barn Studio and Art Classes. And I'm on Instagram.